But currently now I'm having issues connecting to IRC, of course. Seems like it is not too happy about that. There has to be something every time. Yeah, and without anyone on IRC, it's hard to see what exactly is going on. And with this frazzled version of PlanMixPlay, I'm also not too keen to just jump into songs. So I'm going to kill this bird here. And you're going to have to listen to me chat a little more while I try and reconnect. And we'll see what happens in a bit. Sorry, everyone. This is PMPVsVarious, and it's not off to a fantastic start. And see, this is the most annoying thing. If I had any sort of other messenger thing that I could rely on, which maybe I do, give me a second, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear this and things are going through. You know what? I'm just going to assume that the stream is going out, and I'm going to reboot the show, and I'm going to put on the intro, and then we'll take it from there, because there is no sense in me just waiting to confirm this on IRC. So I will be on IRC shortly. So let me pop the intro to the show once again, and I will boot up the YouTube intro. And by the way, you can catch the visuals on YouTube if you're so inclined. They should be up and running, so if you go on the YouTube channel for PlanMixPlay, there should be something available. So let's cue the beginning. Hello, one and all, and welcome once again to the second trial run here on PMPVsVarious. You're listening in, I'm Gazoo, your host, and things just weren't quite working out. I have no reason to believe that the stream isn't going as it should currently, even though I have absolutely no active feedback telling me so. I'm still trying to get onto IRC, and I don't know why. For some reason, this is taking forever. Usually I'm able to get onto IRC pretty quickly, but and there we go. Now finally the servers respond. So hopefully I'll be on IRC soon, and you guys can not only verbally abuse me for not getting all this worked out in time, but also confirm or deny whether or not things are working. So without further ado, I have a number of topics on the docket. They're all kind of various. It's all kind of scattershot. So I believe I will cue up a song to just kind of get us in the mood and kind of forget that all this craziness that just wasn't working out is, well, working, I suppose. And yeah, I am now on IRC, and Vegan64 saying working like a charm. And also hello to everyone joining in the chat. It's awesome to see you guys. Thanks for hanging out, and sorry for all the trouble initially, but you know, them's the breaks, as it were. And we're gonna kill this bed by doing this. There, no more bed. And yeah, that's, you know, this is how it goes. I don't know what's up with Chrome. I've never had that happen. My guess would be I was on the wireless, then I thought, hey, we're doing a live show, we're doing video feed. We better have this thing running well. And lo and behold, as soon as I, you know, connect the network cable and then start fooling around in Chrome again, bam, suddenly no tabs in Chrome will do anything. And I have not had that issue ever before. Probably a new thing, as I said, so my apologies to that. I think someone posted a live link to the YouTube channel where the live feed is currently going out. If someone wouldn't mind repeating that for me, I would be eternally grateful and give you a shout out as well. In the meantime, hello to Kitten, Vegan64, Shargo, LP Chip, who I saw before, who is now bathing, Corkins, and C. Old Fart, you are here, I'm here. And now I can breathe a breath of relief. Let's take a song. I'll get to the request soon enough. In the meantime, why don't we kick it off with Berserk with Blasphemy featuring Palazzo and Kage. Sorry, Palazzo.
Girl, me never had none, so
Cage and Palazzo. Yeah, haha. It's I guess it's an unwritten rule that that's what you have to do whenever you are doing any sort of voice work on a song, and you just want to, dial it up just a little bit. You need to do that, haha, or something. Will Smith style. That was Berserk, his rendition of Blasphemy, and as Vegan64 said, this is artistic freedom, and I couldn't agree more. There is another song another remix, in fact, that reminds me a lot of this. I keep forgetting the name, but it's the one about the guy who talks about owning a bar and something about a gunfight going down in there. Being very lyrically quite nice as well, which kind of makes me wonder if this is something that, these two individuals actually were actively engaged in how should I say, makes me wonder if Palazzo and Kage actually made the lyrics, recorded it for this particular remix, or if like Plastic Pop, Morty's version of that, as I understand it, the lyrics for that was basically grabbed from a lady who put some of her lyrics up for free, or at least to use without paying her royalties. And I was like, hey, you can use this for free if you want. Maybe not commercially, but certainly in a remix context. Speaking of other artists, Adele is performing in the Etihad Stadium, which is no more than about, 400 meters from here, so I can constantly hear the crowd kind of go up and down outside. Like every 5 minutes or so, I'll hear something like outside, which is pretty crazy. My lovely girlfriend was at the concert yesterday, and apparently she did a bang-up show. Also not cheap. Seeing Adele here in Melbourne is insanely expensive, unless you're a smart cookie and you do what my partner did and basically bought a view-obstructed seat, which is barely obstructed at all, and pay a third of the price or something like that, which is pretty crazy. Also, it's interesting. First of all, there are a few people who are seeing the visuals for the first time. I can tell, among others, Commodore Oldford, who notes that the transcoding on YouTube is higher quality audio-wise. That may well be. I've also had people complain about the audio and saying, it sounds a bit more wonky on YouTube. I think it depends on a lot of things. I decided to bump it up to 720p just because the audio goes with it. Because, look, let's face it, I am rendering a C64-like visualization here, so 720p is slightly overkill, but the audio output you definitely want at a higher bit rate than, 360p, which is YouTube's classic resolution, or rather 460. Wasn't it? No, 480, sorry. The regular old standard definition. And also, there were a few people I think I forgot to say hi to. Corkins, I think I mentioned Kitten, of course. And Mary77I joins us as well. And it's a show. The show has now begun officially. I wish I could say this means I'll make it up to you on the other side, that you'll get another 6-7 minutes. You may not. It depends. But do not fret as if this show is all you're seeing. I am working tirelessly behind the scenes with every spare moment that I have to tweak and twirl and make PlanMixPlay a bit more interesting, and more details on that later. In the meantime, why don't we take the first request of the evening, which comes from Shargo, who I also promised to give a shout out to, and here it comes, because he was friendly enough to copy-paste the live YouTube link. So if you're listening in on the show and you want some visuals, you can go to the YouTube page for PlanMixPlay. And so just Google that if you want to see what the visuals are all about. They will get better, I promise. In the meantime, Shargo simply requested Mr. T with Last Mission, and that has one hell of a red smiley on it, so it can only be pretty amazeballs. So here is Mr. T with Last Mission for Shargo. And I'm once again totally not caught off guard by that ending there. That was a very planned brief pause by me, the professional show host, who's being professional. And you can always tell a professional show host from a non-professional show host just by the fact that they state that they are professional. Like that's kind of the key defining factor there. Keep that in mind. So in case you're wondering, is Gazoo professional or not professional? Just ask yourself, did he say he was? If yes, which by the way I did, then he is. End of discussion. It's Sunday evening and Adele is ripping it up. Like I can still hear her. In fact, if it wasn't so noisy, I'd open the window to get a bit more fresh air in here, but it is loud. The concert is loud enough that this microphone would undoubtedly pick it up. And then I'd be slapped with all kinds of DMCA claims left and right. Who knows what YouTube would be getting up to if they thought that I was actually somehow streaming a bit of the Adele concert. I'd probably have a SWAT team knocking down the door and going like, kid, I guess grown old man would probably be more appropriate. Fucking stop streaming or we will sue you into oblivion. And then I go, wee, and because that's what all mad scientists do. All professional mad scientists, by the way, run off screaming just for fear of what might happen to me. Right, so that was for Shargo, who wanted Mr. T or MRT with Last Mission. And I have a few topics, as I said, and I'm wondering where to start. I think we'll start by just taking another request right off the bat. And Vegan64 actually wanted a request which he ended up deciding might be better for a wind down. And I think I agree, so I think I'm going to leave that one, Vegan64, for now. But LP Chip, who is currently bathing, I'd insert some sort of bathing noise here, but I don't have any. He writes, "Hey Gazoo, can you play us an original Sid, Tim Fallon with Magic Johnson's Basketball?" And because he helped out a bit in making this happen, of course I can, LB Chip. Here you go. And as that conveniently fades out into the end, I will put my annoying voice on top and talk a bit and say, Commodore Orphan, old fart note, someone didn't do the crossover on the loop right. In addition, the recording with this also has a slight sorry about that, slight high level pitch if you heard it. It's very audible in the beginning, and if PlanMixPlay was a better audio program, I'd snatch out the very beginning. Please excuse me. I'd snatch out the very beginning of the tune, and I would loop it for a little bit, because you can hear this kind of high-pitched whine at the very start of it. Like, but not, as if a professional show host is saying that noise. More like, whatever technical noise. And also, I think I will do a public service announcement.
Vegan wants LP Chip to know. Great request, I hope. One of the things I like about the Slay Radio live show is that every song is handpicked, or curated, if you will. Given the sheer size of the C64 library, it's hard to keep track of all the quality releases out there. That's why I really enjoy listening to requests and more, obscure ones. This has been the end of the public announcement.
Boo, boo. It's for LP Chip, who's in the shower. So I thought I'd pass that along, Vegan64, because, hey, he's not here to read it. He will be later, though. Isn't it nice we can have such an interpersonal show when it's so small? If it ever gets big, I wonder, I know, but that's the funny thing. It's not hard to ever reduce an audience. You can always just say, well, I'll just, post a link or do a show on this much more obscure air channel, place, whatever. And have a very, how should I say, a very concentrated audience that way. Right. Coming up next, we have a request by VCR, who wanted Captain America and the Doom 2 by Clayton and Stafford Marsland. And I have to see if I can. Yes, that must be the Marsland brothers. So I would have put that under M. There they are. So I'm lining this up now. But before we get into the song, let's get into one of the topics at least, because I have about 4 or 5 here on the docket. Let's get the annoying one out of the way. This is a bit of a rant on my part here. So, I fancy myself as a bit of a graphics dude. I do not these days play as much as I used to. But when I do get the chance to play, I'm still kind of the type of guy who wants to really, have all the pixels pixeling and all the triangles triangling and really just make all of the visuals pop. Like, I love turning all the details up and being like, hell fucking yeah, this is the shit. I have the best graphics card, or at least something that is good enough. Great. Now, the laptop that I'm doing the show on and playing games on, people in the chat appreciating the rant. I must admit, I'm not sure there's a good part of the show, but anyway. So the laptop is not new. It's about a little over a year old, and that's when I bought it. The original version of this laptop, I think, came out almost 2 years ago. That being said, it had a fairly high-end card at the time. It has an NVIDIA 980M, the mobile version of it, and I bought this laptop knowing, well, this, card will last me for quite a bit, which it has. In fact, even quite new games run fairly well. I think maybe Witcher 3 is one of the most recent games where I've had to, or I tried Witcher 2, cranked it all up and found out, oh no, this is not tenable at all. I'd have to go to medium settings, maybe even low. That bummed me out enough to maybe not even play the game. I'll actually put it aside and be like, no, when I get a better graphics card, I'll come back to it, because, it just saps my enjoyment. Now, zooming forward to today or recently, most of you will know that I moved continents, and being that as it is, I do not bring a lot of shit with me. So I didn't bring, for example, a monitor. Hence my interest in buying a new one, which I also did recently. And when buying one, I was like, what's important? I'm not sure. Going to Tom's Hardware, and eventually I clued into the fact that NVIDIA's new G-Sync feature is apparently a very big deal. And I remember looking at my card and going, oh yeah, it's a 980M, and that should be fine. Like, this feature will be a part of what I can use. Great. So I thought, well, sure, since I have an NVIDIA card, I might as well look into getting a monitor that uses this kind of dumbass thing. Because look, G-Sync, I've seen some videos for that shit, and I'll tell you, the videos, they overblow the feature to an infinite degree. It's like they show you a video where things are screen tearing everywhere, and look, since VSync came along, screen tearing really isn't a thing. I think the newest thing about G-Sync and AMD's own proprietary answer to this is basically that it allows you to run at a much higher hertz. So there is some gain, but it's not anywhere near as highly as they tout it to be. I mean, yes, if you're running the most unsynchronized, as in no VSync on and a lot of other things, yes, you'll get horrible screen tearing, but again, the video is really drastically over exaggerated. Nonetheless, I was excited to still try this new feature, hence me buying a monitor that actually supported this. So I buy the monitor, I pick it up yesterday actually. I get home, I plug it in, and I'm like, oh, okay, everything works kind of fine, not sure about this G-Sync stuff, who cares? And then after a couple hours, I'm like, okay, maybe I should look into this G-Sync thing. And first of all, I find out, you can't do that with an HDMI cable. And I was already like, okay. No, you need a DisplayPort cable. And I was like, oh, okay. What if I don't have a DisplayPort out? I have like a mini DisplayPort out. And let's find out that, no, that's fine. It's fine, no problem. Okay, great. Moving on, however, what I discover is basically that my laptop, as is, does not support G-Sync. Apparently a newer version of exactly the same laptop that has, I guess, a few different bits written into the BIOS, or maybe some slight changes on the motherboard, something, can do it. But mine, nope, big fat middle finger from Asus to me. And I start investigating this and eventually discover that there was even a replacement program launched because of irate owners of this older version. It's like, fucking, I'm not buying a new version of this laptop just to get that. And it's insane. Like, there has actually been a replacement program, which has, of course, ended half a year ago, back when G-Sync came out. So I knew nothing, and that's basically where I am. Now I'm here with a G-Sync monitor, which probably cost a couple of extra $100 just for that feature that I'm basically not going to use, or at least not with this laptop apparently. And yeah, that feels pretty shitty. That's a crummy thing, and I'm not too happy about it, but there's also not really much I can do. I think I'm going to reach out to Asus via their forum, but I expect them to say tough shit. Yeah, which really sucks. So yeah, that's a little bit of a rant for you there. G-Sync, crappy fucking bullshit there. So do not just count on you having a graphics card and then that being good enough. Anyway, let's play another request. Let's play VCR's request, who wanted this Captain America and the Doom Tube from the Marsland Brotherhood. that was for VCR, the Marsland Brotherhood with Captain America, and I believe it was the Doom Tube. And once again, I'm faced with this Chrome issue. Every new tab is just crashing, and I don't know why. I wish I did. Fortunately, if I don't kill any existing tab, I don't have that problem, but I am completely lost as to what the cause is. Fortunately, I am on all the sites I need to be, and an existing tab isn't actually going to actively crash, which is a good thing, but I am puzzled as to what's causing this. I have no idea what it is. So yeah, I guess let's just hope that I don't need any new tabs and leave that with that. In the meantime, Kitten, you have requested for more than once in a row. Yeah, and also Vegan64 is mentioning chances are it's a plugin. The thing is, the only thing I have open is the Bird plugin, and I've not had issues with that ever before. Chrome has been updated recently, but again, I'm puzzled as to what's causing this. This is the first version of Chrome I've ever had that does this consequently. Anyway, Kitten, you wanted some Fist 2 Cavern Edition because that game is just awesome. This is not the first time that you've requested the Cavern Edition, and I still am clueless as to which exact remix you want, because as far as I'm aware, there isn't any remix out there of Fist 2 with Cavern in the name. So I'm going to be a small child and simply play almost what you want, but not exactly, just kind of to piss you off a bit, and hopefully piss you off enough to decide that now you will tell me exactly which remix you're talking about, or maybe someone else can clue me in. So instead of playing Caverns, I'm going to play TNT's version of Fist 2, which is just entitled Fist 2 Buildings. So I guess a building is kind of a cavern, as long as you have a window and it's not earth. So this is for you. And there you have it, the end of the song as I turn down the monitor. TNT, Fist 2 Buildings, and Kitten has luckily acquiesced to my demands to get me a link to exactly what song she would like. Because it definitely isn't Fist 2 Buildings, I can imagine, because that doesn't have a lot of cavern in it, as I recall. But thank you, Kitten, for requesting that. Always a lovely time. Let's move on. So yeah, as you heard, I was a little bit miffed at this G-Sync thing, and it sucks. Look, the monitor is great anyway. It's working fine. There's generally nothing wrong with it, and hey, I'm sure its low refresh rate and low latency will benefit me generally speaking. So there's nothing to say I wouldn't have bought this thing anyway. Excuse me. But it's one of those things where you buy something, it has a feature in it, you expect to use it. And then when you come home, you basically find out, nope, fuck you, that's not going to happen. So that's a bit of a shitty thing. Right, moving on. Another thing I wanted to briefly talk about, I don't really want to delve into this, but it's kind of odd because it's once again about YouTube, and in particular, a content creator, some of you may or may not have heard of him, John Tron, does a lot of, in my opinion, fairly well produced stuff. He has been on YouTube for a while. He is successful enough that he clearly employs a minor team of individuals. So he probably sticks to, I'm guessing, writing most of his material. He kind of, he delves in the very formulaic stuff. It's all about, I don't know, here's a crappy old movie, I'm going to review that. Or here's a series of shitty games, I'll remove that. Like, none of it is particularly novel these days anymore, but he was certainly among the first to do it, and thus has garnered quite a large following. He has, I think, 3 million subscribers or something, so quite a few. And the reason I'm making note of him is, if you visit any sort of gaming site, you'll have noticed a news story about how he was recently involved in a political discussion with another YouTuber, and it kind of came forward that John Tron's views are fairly conservative right. And I'm not going to delve into exactly what it is. I would say just a few notes on, apparently he was, in my opinion, maybe a little too, even right-wing to the point of spouting things that as far as I'm aware of, there is no legitimate proof of. Something along the lines of wealthy black people commit far more crimes than poor white people. That's certainly something I myself wouldn't be caught dead saying unless I had what I would consider to be solid, completely unrefutable, undeniable proof. But hey, anyway, so there was a bunch of things that he said in a debate, and he's right. And look, if you're not right, you're left, and if you're not left or right, I guess you're centrist. And yeah, Kitten even goes, who? Yeah, indeed. Like, some of you don't know this person. Anyway, and it doesn't really matter one way or the other. The reason I bring it up is because I unsubscribed the guy, and here's the thing. I have normally had quite a dissenting view of others who would not follow or listen to someone or listen to their craft / their art if they didn't agree with their political views. And I think it's probably because, to me, it's totally okay for John Tron to lean right while I probably lean left. It's probably more that I felt his views went far further right than I would ever be comfortable with. And then there is certainly a part of me that goes, hey, if I can support him by spending my time watching his content, or instead watch someone else's content, I should spend it watching someone else's content. Like, I still think a masterpiece is, and yeah, Vegan64 saying that's your typical filter bubble. No, you're totally right. It is keying into that, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And you are on the money. Yeah, and as Gray MF, I can never that nickname. You're gonna have to change your nickname, Gray. Sorry, is it or I'm just gonna call you Gray. Anyway, it is the political bubble at work, and I don't like that. I don't like unfollowing him, but I think it's less hypocritical because look, John Tron isn't a political personality. I'm not unsubscribing to him because I'm not interested in here. It's because I never followed the guy for his political views, but I have no interest in supporting someone who has, I'd say, not only a view that I don't support, but also one I think is decidedly misinformed. So someone wrote somewhere saying, look, with his support that he has through the millions of subscribers he now has, some of his output has actually begun becoming a bit political. Apparently his Twitter account has started spouting a lot of these beliefs left and right, and that is what it is. Look, yeah, Gray Man is a good choice. Anyway, and that is what it is. I'm not really unfollowing the guy because I don't think he should use his platform for what he wants to use it for. By all means, look, it's his subscribers and it's his, user base. He should do whatever he wants. That's fine with me. I think it is more the notion that there are a lot of people trying to make it in the world, and if I put my eyeballs on something, I'm giving someone attention and thus giving whatever they're making more value. And JonTron clearly doesn't need me to do that because he has millions of people who do that already. And then I'd rather say, okay, this is an apt opportunity for me to find someone new, check out someone else. But coming back to what Vegan64 says, yes, you're absolutely right. That can be, and further enhancing your bubble. But as I said before, my counter argument to that is I've never been into JonTron to know his political views. He was never a political pundit for me. I still read right-wing media, or let's not say right. Yeah, well, I guess that's pretty not negative. I still read right-wing media when I see it and look at right-wing articles. Like for me, the political bubble I try to keep, I try to expand the right. But as a creator and I guess as just a person, I have a far lessened interest in him. Which is, yes, it's a shame because I don't think I would still recommend some of the videos I've seen of him. Now it's perhaps more going forward, I would rather see if I can find someone I'd rather support and I think needs my support. But don't get me wrong, it's a gray area, just like Rayman. I'll see myself out. So yeah, and I thought that was something I wanted to touch upon, which I did. And now we've spoken about it, we've talked about it, now I can get back to more C64 stuff. And Morbid Angel is listening in, and I believe requests through the website. He would like some XX Dusty XX. We have had quite a bit of XX Dusty XX, but that doesn't mean we can't have a bit more of him. It seems like I think every show there's usually one XX Dusty XX request. This time, Morbid Angel would like Beat 'em Up Part 1 with the martial arts medley, and I'm serving that up hot and fresh for you. XX Dusty XX with Beat 'em Up Part 1 Martial Arts Medley for Morbid Angel. So thank you very much, Morbid Angel, for requesting that. And it seems, I think that this Chrome thing, this tab thing, is something that Google knows about. In fact, for some reason, they started working again. I think it is an online networking issue with how it connects to Google, to be honest, because of course Chrome uses Google through the URL tab up top, or through the address bar, whatever you will call it. And now I went to the About page just to see if there was an update, and sure enough, it immediately downloaded an update, and I've just chosen not to relaunch it for now, because hey, it's in the middle of a show, best not to fiddle with the software as the show is going. In the meantime, I also want to highlight, I appreciate the individuals who are sending me songs and links as I'm playing, because I can actually incorporate that now. I also wanted to say that there are a few issues that PlanMixPlay has with some versions of some files every now and again, certain MP3 files, and I know of these issues, and I'm doing my best to see if I can work with them, but I'll also honestly say it's not a priority at this point, because most of the song files work quite well. What I'm working on currently is, I think I mentioned this last show, that some of the development on PlanMixPlay has taken a backseat to also try and exposing it a bit more. So today and yesterday, I basically worked on auto announcements, because the website itself, PlanMixPlay.com, has most of the schedule lined up pretty well. And there's no reason why this website doesn't also take care of tweeting and on Facebook announcing the shows that get done. And I would say as soon as that is ready, and maybe the next set of visuals, that's kind of to the point where I feel more comfortable starting to maybe not advertise, but at least trying to gain somewhat of a bigger audience. Because I'm always very cautious of attracting people to the show just because I think that maybe the show isn't quite worth being attracted to yet, especially compared to so much of the other high quality content that's out there. But I would say we're getting pretty close. Like, we're getting to the point where I'd be totally okay with the PlanMixPlay Twitter account always tweeting out about a show beginning in an hour's time or something. And you can of course choose if you'd like to have that reminder or not, and subscribe. Anyway, that's a little bit about what I've been working on. And I have another topic I want to talk about regarding YouTube, but this time a group of people I follow quite a bit, and unfortunately it's a sad story somewhat, but we'll get to that in a bit. In the meantime, let's take another request, this time by Co-op Dot, who requests Johan Andersson Outrun Splash Wave Surf Mix. More than happy to play that for you, Co-op Dot. Outrun Splash Wave, the surf mix by Johan Andersson for Co-op Dot. Thank you very much for requesting that. And in regards to the Twitter and Facebook thing, Kitten mentions that she's the anti-social type. No Facebook, no Twitter, no anything. Plaster your personal details online app. No, and I totally agree. I'm not too happy about that either. And of course, Greyman points out, hey, there is RSS and other means. And indeed, those won't go away. This is simply expanding the reach. Partially also because, look, this is... I think RSS feeds are awesome. The awesome thing about Facebook and Twitter is it's a more mainstream thing. Like, there are people who wouldn't know where to begin with an RSS feed, how to use it, what to do with it, or even bother to get any sort of app to get it. And it's interesting because if you want to grow your audience or grow your reach in any sort of way, you kind of have your basic options boil down to either A, find new platforms with which to reach your audience, or B, use an existing platform and just be better at reaching them via that one. And that may be through advertising, it may be through some sort of collaborative work. There are many ways of doing it, and one of the cheapest, that's the thing, it's not cheap in terms of time because it costs me a couple of days to integrate this well, and that's time I could be doing some other stuff. But compared to, for example, spending real money on advertising, that's... I don't know. I would rather try to integrate Twitter and Facebook into announcing shows for now, because I feel that just opens up the doors a little bit and lets people who were to find shows like this in the future kind of hang on. Yes, it seems I've been... Like I said, Kitten, apologies. There has been a Kitten before. Kitten points out that it's a he, not a she. I believe there has been a Kitten before on the chat. Maybe Kitty. I'm senile, I'm old. Blame me all you want. Anyway, he isn't the social feedback type of guy. Not on Facebook, not on Twitter, which is all cool. And also, Greyman brings up another point. I was talking with someone about... which is asking if PlanMixPlay is currently open source because he might want to contribute. And the reason I bring it up is actually it's partially because of his comment, but also someone else I spoke to recently who also asked if it wasn't open source. And I made an argument I've heard a few times before, as in, if software isn't open source, I don't really trust what it's doing, which I think is fair. The main reason I think, for me, that PlanMixPlay currently isn't open source is because I'd have to make some somewhat, at least in my eyes, definitive decisions. If I were to open source it, going back again is not easy. It's a little easier going from closed to open, because once the source is out there, it's kind of out there. And I think... It's also because I remember when I spoke to this other individual whose nick escapes me now, I mentioned that I was certainly interested in some ways making a living off it, where the person immediately assumed that the software would be sold, where I had to correct the person and go, no, that this doesn't mean that PlanMixPlay is ever really going to cost anything. It is an option. I would actually probably prefer that I could turn the instrument into something that had enough appeal that someone might be willing to, I don't know, sponsor a show, or maybe just integrate it into some other venue or something. That would be way cooler for me. And I have a few thoughts on how to do that and what moves to make, but there's still a lot to do and many steps to get there. So it's kind of all a future thing. And I would say that is also one of those things where it makes it a lot easier to keep the source closed for now, because once again, I could see someone saying, hey, I will collaborate, but then I have some certain demands, and some demands, might be that it's open source, might also be that I want some things that aren't open, and then, it's easier if things aren't open. Anyway, we had one Outrun tune, and that reminded me of another perfectly good Outrun tune made by Dax, and I thought, hey, why not play that one, because we haven't had this one in a while. It's my personal favorite of the Outrun tunes compared to Splash Wave and Passing Breeze. Although, they're not bad. Neither of those are clunkers either, but Magical Sound Shower will always remain my favorite. This is Dax's version, Outrun Dax at the Rio remix. Take it away, Dax. That was Dax with Outrun Magical Sound Shower, Dax at the Rio remix, and indeed Vegan, Vegan highlights the fact that it is an amazing Sid remix, and I couldn't agree more. It is fantastic. And also, I hope people don't mind, but I am, of course, quite passionate about PlanMixPlay, so whenever someone bothers to engage me in a conversation about it, I will usually continue that thread for quite a bit, and hey, it's my show, so if you have a problem with that, tough shit. But people are providing a few suggestions as to what to do with my current indecisiveness as to go with closed and open source. Greyman mentions that Qt is partially closed, partially open. I haven't looked into it. I actually thought that Qt, I know that Qt went from being closed to open, which is why they have this kind of weird header code structure where there is an object called private, Q private or something, where you can only see some of it and the core internals were. And I thought it had been completely opened up, but according to Commodore Oldfart, he says the most recent one is closed, and the open one is one version behind. And I also, again, I should underline before I start criticizing or commenting on these suggestions, I appreciate all the interaction, mainly any sort of movement towards any openness, inclusion, unless I were to, basically the only thing that would be a near zero burden in terms of work on my end would be a complete move into openness and just say, here is the entire Git repo put up on GitHub, and from now on I'll develop that. And everyone else can do whatever they want with it. That would be a near zero burden. I could probably do that in a single day. But any other suggestion, while interesting, good, maybe even viable in the future, usually means that the code has to be rewritten quite a bit, especially if it's partially closed, partially open. Every single class would have to be a little bit, rejiggered here and there. And also, again, involving other people is also an effort in and of itself. Like, I certainly want to involve others. That's why I'm kind of constantly on the lookout for anyone who might want to alpha test PlanMixPlay. I've had a few people mention an interest, and there is a possibility of registering as a user. But I also think it'll be more appealing once the newer versions start getting released, and that's still up on the board because it takes a while. In fact, even though this version has visuals now, I'm kind of half regretting not putting more work into it before using it, because now, prior to every show, when I don't get a new version done, I kind of kick myself and I'm angry that I still have to use this like quirky, steamy, janky old version that just seems very rickety and not quite using. And but I feel I can't go back anymore because now I have visuals and I don't want to give those up. And just to highlight, Grayman mentions a very short comment that the hybrid model wouldn't harm the development. No, and I think maybe you're misunderstanding me. It's not that I think any hybrid model harms development. It just takes time. It takes time to convert it. Oh yes, and this Kitten brings up a great point, which actually leads into this other talk that I have, where he says that you can go the Patreon paywall, get a few hardcore listeners. If you go YouTube, you'll get more listeners, but most will not pay anything. Ad revenue shall pay some. So here's the deal. I'm wondering if we should take a song and then get into this, because this ties exactly into these other people on YouTube that I wanted to talk a bit about. You know what? Let's take a song, and Kitten, then I will very exhaustively respond to that, because there's a group of people on YouTube called the PMPVsVarious, and they recently did a podcast, talked exactly about making money on YouTube, and I'll get to that. But in the meantime, I believe we should take another request, and this time it was Mika, I believe. I just need to find where I put that. It was another Johan Andersson. Yes, and this time it was the Warhawk Rockabilly mix. Let's just see I get the name right. Yes, Mika. Mika, you wanted some Warhawk Rockabilly mix from Johan Andersson. I have not heard this song in a while because I don't have it locally. But that doesn't mean that in fact, I think it has a huge happy smiley. So let's give it a listen. And there we have Johan Andersson, War Hawk Rockabilly Mix, requested by Mika. So thank you very much for requesting that. And Curculus is off, and we're entering into the fourth quarter. And one last word, I don't know if anyone else is wondering, but it seemed Greyman was still a little iffy on the details in regards to Qt. And as I mentioned before, what I was trying to explain badly is that Qt's old open/closed source approach had basically some of the member variables in the code stashed away, and so they'd basically make some sort of pointer to a struct called something qprivate or something, and you couldn't see what was in that code because that was compiled away, optimized. So that was basically, you got a single pointer in a header, but they hid a bunch of the other stuff. So all the closed source code would go in there. Any member variables that needed to be accessed by the closed source, but not the open one, would go in there. The rest of it would go in the header. And I'm sounding like a broken record, but yes, Greyman, that would affect code absolutely. A half-closed, half-open source solution, at least compared to the one Qt used, would absolutely require a big rewrite depending on how much I wanted to close off, because I would basically have to split the program into two. For every object, I'd have to decide what's closed and what's open, and put the closed stuff away in one of those obscure pointers. And I don't know if Qt has rewritten the code now, but I do know that when I checked out an older, but maybe a year, not too old version of it, there were totally remnants of that. Like, you could still see this pointer hanging around various places, and I remember even looking it up, being like, wait, what is this weird qprivate struct I keep seeing everywhere? And they used to at least have a FAQ, I'm sure they still do somewhere, explaining, yeah, this was when we used to have a closed core in Qt, and all the closed stuff would be in there. Moving along, getting back to money, commercialism, Patreon, blah, 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 because Kitten, he made a good point saying about, you can go to the Patreon paywall, you can get some hardcore listeners, you can go to YouTube, get more listeners, but most won't pay anything, but ad revenue should pay some. So here's the thing. First of all, I think I've mentioned this before, but I will do so again. While I feel as though I have a massive audience, the actual reality here is it's hard to say, because look, I appreciate that whenever I do a show, I would say the live listener count is just about 90 up to 100 people, which is lovely. And if you take into account the people who download the shows afterwards, it's probably even higher than that. And hey, for a once a week show, that's not bad on the internet at all. And lots of this is largely thanks to Slay Radio, Slaygon, and all the work that everyone involved there has done in kind of building up this awesome community. So it is a awesome platform to me and to me to go on and broadcast with. However, having said all of those positive things, I'm also aware of what kind of percentage you have in terms of conversion. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure that C64 fans are quite fervent and very enthusiastic, but my expectations as to who of you would be willing to part with any actual real money in order to support a show, I believe would be quite low. And that is not to say that that's a bad thing. I myself would also be very cautious with paying for something. And Patreon for me is as an option if you have, I would say, a significant followership of maybe, I don't know, upwards of 50,000 people who know what you're up to. Then I think you can maybe depend on 1,000 of those, which is a percentage of like 0.002 or something, throwing some coins your way. And the reason I'm quoting this number is because this is actually ties into Giant Bomb, who's had recent staff members kind of strike and branch out on their own. And you can kind of see on their Twitter account, they have about 50 or 60,000 followers. An example of this would be the recent Drew Scanlon. And he, I think, amassed over like $15,000 of monthly Patreon contributions, which is insanely high, actually. I would also say Giant Bomb is a very close-knit community, and they are very passionate about the people they are supporting. if I were to open a Patreon account and ask for any sort of contribution to go towards development, I think I could expect either 0 or a little above 0. And that's just the way it is. Look, money isn't easy to come by these days. We'd all love to have more of it, and people are very conscious of what they do with it, which is a fair reason. And this is also the reason why I'm not really hot on creating something on Patreon currently. Furthermore, I also think the greatest thing about Patreon is offering a bonus. Like, this show should probably always remain free because people have gotten, Slay radio shows are free. I doubt anyone would bother to pay for them, and I think it's totally fair to maybe not expect them to continue to be free. That is getting close to maybe being entitled, but I think asking somebody for money is not really the way to go, and maybe not even, or honestly, probably not also worth it. Hey, let's. I may be professional, but that doesn't, you know what I'm saying. It would have to be something extra, and I don't really know what that would be at this point. So that's another thing. And then finally, going to YouTube, and this is where the real kicker, and this is where the sad story comes in. So there's a group called the PMPVsVarious who do animated stuff. If you do not know them, I would highly recommend you Google PMPVsVarious. So instead of barbarians, PMPVsVarious. They have in their recent podcast basically come to the conclusion that this is not a viable business strategy for us, which is it's almost a little bit heartbreaking. Like, they started 4 years ago. They've been, I think, doing most of this work full time. Like, they animate full time. Sometimes it's paid jobs, commissioned. Sometimes it's their own thing on YouTube. And their view is basically, look, unless your video is garnering around 1 million views per video, unless you have around about maybe 1 million subscribers, and even then, even with 1 million subscribers, that for them would not be viable to continue making a living, which just breaks my heart, because I think they've gotten around 30 or 400,000, which is quite a lot. And they produce awesome content. It takes an eon for them to make it because it's all hand animated stuff, but it just goes to show that this amount of people they've been able to kind of get behind them is not insignificant. And I think if they just started doing Let's Plays and had done that for 4 years, maybe they'd not, gotten anywhere as far. But the problem is, everyone who subscribed to their channel, of course, continues to expect the kind of content they produce, and they simply cannot produce it at a rate at which any ad revenue would be enough to support them. Like, they can maybe crank a video out every 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, and that's a long time, and that's because it's all hand animated stuff. This sort of content production takes a long while, whereas a Let's Player, not to say that there isn't any work that goes into that, because there certainly is, but you can just crank that out much faster. Like, you can have 2, 3, maybe not 4, but you can certainly have, depending on how many people are helping you, you can have a video out certainly daily, even if you're just one person. It may not be super well produced, but if you get far enough, you can certainly make it happen. And it just isn't the same for the type of content that you generate. And that's also the other sad thing here, that I can move towards that because this show is live. So as soon as I sit down and spend 2 hours, that gets turned into actual content immediately. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the most exciting and fun 2 hours to listen to, especially for someone who isn't into C64 stuff. So, there's still a lot to go, and that's also why most of my focus, you may notice, is on how I can automate stuff to just do more by doing less. Like, most of my contributions to PlanMixPlay are all about, well, how can I take away a task that I don't want to do anymore, or that needs to get done but might as well be automated, because that leaves me more time to do other stuff. And that's where the PMPVsVarious are, unfortunately, in this really nasty impasse where the animating part of their work cannot be automated away. Like, that is their hand, crafting that just can't really be easily replaced with a robot. And if it could, it wouldn't be the same thing either. So yeah, it's a tough thing, and their content just isn't produced fast enough to make ends meet. which is really nasty because I guess it sounds like they might actually be winding their channel down or maybe considering completely changing directions, which really sucks if you ask me. I've yacked a lot, so I think it's only fair that we also play a lot. So why don't we take a slightly longer tune here with Defunct's Beyond Zero, which I haven't heard in a while now. And then we'll see how close we are to the end. And Greyman asks, what are they doing? Well, animating. Google PMPVsVarious, and you'll see what type of stuff they crank out. Anyway, in the meantime, here is Defunct with Beyond Zero. And I thought we should just really amp it up a little bit before we wind it down, because we are entering the last quarter of the show, the last eighth, as it were. And we're talking a little bit about this thing on YouTube. And it's difficult. The PMPVsVarious are, as I said before, they're animators. They do cartoons. Animation takes time compared to if we really want to boil it down to rough things. If you're a Let's Player and you want to make some content, basically what you do is, we're going to assume you have the game already. So everything's installed, good to go. All the software is ready for both people. So what the Let's Player would have to do is basically sit down, start the game, start all the recording software, and just play. And if you're playing with others, of course, that takes some coordination. And you record yourself playing, you record yourself talking. Once you're done, you hit a few buttons, that gets spit out. If your setup is very advanced, you will probably have a completely merged file that already has all the the stuff it needs in it. It basically embeds a video of you from some webcam angle, and it highlights the audio tracks are balanced. All of that might these days be completely automated, meaning that the time it takes you to create a video is no longer than the time it basically takes you to play the game. So if you're sitting down to play for half an hour, it will take you approximately half an hour to make the video. An animator, on the other hand, to generate, just a couple of minutes worth of video, instead needs to plan something out, make a storyboard, think of the scene, think of jokes, think of a few other things. All of that process will take a couple of weeks, because even animating and coloring it is, it's a big thing. And that is, to me, what I have, I guess, not an issue with, but what I find unfortunate is, and I'm not surprised, YouTube doesn't make any sort of delineation between their content. One of the small differences that people in the chat are pointing out, that is, you do have something called YouTube Red, where YouTube has now picked out what they believe is a very awesome representation of what they can offer in terms of content creators. And some of these people are partnered in such a way that they get paid to create their content. And this would probably work for animation if YouTube were willing to invest in it. But I think the numbers also clearly show that this content is just not worth what you're getting out of it in terms of views. And it is unfortunate. I think it's interesting because Greyman has what I would call perhaps a more dystopian view, and just says, well, that's just the way it is, tough shit. And yeah, you're right, it is that way. Look, you can't necessarily expect YouTube to become, judge, jury, and executioner. In fact, they have every incentive to not be involved at all. They just want to let the users decide. If the users believe that, a Let's Player who shits out an episode every single hour is preferable to someone who spends time animating some original content, then that's what's going to get promoted. And if I were in YouTube's shoes, I'm not sure I would do it any differently. But I guess the issue I have is that because there is absolutely no curation of the content, it does mean that Let's Play content, which to me is fairly unoriginal, given that, any popular game these days will probably be Let's Played by over a shit ton of people, that is still the way forward for many people, or at least that's what people try to do to get attention. And that means the death of more interesting and original content. Like, for example, the PMPVsVarious stuff, if you ask me. Which is a shame. Now that Greyman points out that, they can go somewhere else if they want. Yes, they can, but the problem is you need an audience. If you want to survive as an artist, you need an audience. And like it or not, YouTube is by far the monopoly in that sense. So the answer of go somewhere else doesn't really help either. Like, that just means go somewhere where there isn't an audience, and thus you are kind of back to square one. But then again, I guess there isn't an audience in YouTube either. Anyway, YouTube Red. I've I thought about it. I thought about if I should pay for that. If I was like, do I really hate ads enough? And then usually the answer for me is, I have enough other content. I'm paying for Foxtel Play here, which I will be canceling shortly because, God, they're just... I'm not even gonna get into that. And let's take an energetic song before we wind things down. This is Skits with Nine Fingers, the club mix. Skitz's 9 Fingers Club Mix, and I can hear Adele is now wrapping up with Somebody Like You. It's interesting living this close to the stadium. You can hear the song that's being played, but it's still kind of so wobbly, muffled, carried through the air that you certainly can't enjoy a concert without paying for it, which is of course the whole concept of things. This is the end of the show. I am again. I kind of always get a bit. I always get a bit perturbed as to how much I should make this show a personal conversation between me and someone else. That someone else being Gray Man, because that's not really what the show's about. I do try as much as possible to engage in the chat, so I will engage one last time, saying I'm not sure what Gray Man means in regards to whoever taught how to program. Must not have been taught in a limited environment. Not really sure what that's related to in regards to what we've been chatting about so far. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show. Apologies for the slight hiccups in the beginning. Also, apt to say to Vegan, whose request was at the mentioned at the very beginning, and building up to playing that until I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but even before I was typing in this song, it did hit me that indeed this is a commercially released tune, and given that we're doing a live visual show on YouTube, Vegan64, I'm sorry, but I cannot play that song because it would mean that the video would be smacked with a content ID match and thus be usually blocked or monetized or something else. And until I have a better solution as to how to handle that, which I do not, my solution is to just avoid it. That's what we're going to continue with. So I'm sorry to say, Vegan64, your request with Rein Overhand Asian Legends, I will not be playing tonight. I have picked out something I feel is similar in spirit, which is Kent Walden's, even though people always pronounce him Kent Waldian, but I never see Kent Walden. With Way of the Exploding Fist. And no worries, Vegan64, he mentions on the chat that he didn't realize. Now, you probably weren't here last time where I had a long spiel about it, and a few people, Greyman is mentioning remove monetization. Yeah, but it's not that easy, unfortunately. The content ID match doesn't always just lead to monetization. Sometimes it leads to being blocked in every country, which of course leads to blocking the entire video, not just a portion of it, and that's what I'm kind of trying to avoid. I had fun. I hope you had fun as well. I will be back next Sunday, and I really hope that if everything works out well, but that's quite a stretch, I may have not only fixed the announcing issues for the site, but also hopefully a newer version of PlanMixPlay, because I have another feature for the visuals, which is it's almost done, or at least most of the legwork has been done. It needs to be integrated a bit better into the interface, but it is so close to being ready that it would be a shame not to do that last piece of work just to get that done. Thank you all for all of your requests. Thank you for listening in. I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too. As I said, I'll be back, and there'll probably be a few other shows as well during the week, so keep an eye out for that. I'll take you out with Kent Waldian, Way of the Exploding Fist. Good night, everybody.